Here's a myth, that yoga poses are timeless, handed down unchanged for thousands of years. The triangle pose, or Trikonasana, is a perfect example of why that's not entirely true. Triangle pose is one of those yoga shapes that feels eternal. It's simple and geometric. And yet, when we look closer, it's not as timeless as people think. The pose itself has evolved, morphed, and adapted depending on the teacher, the lineage, and even the cultural context. I'm not saying it's not an amazing pose, it's one of my favorites. I'm just trying to give you a little background. So in this video, I'm going to show you the theoretical evolution of triangle. From a narrow stance to cosmic geometry, to the kind of athletic alignment heavy Iyengar style, and explain why and how these differences matter. Not just for learning, but how you practice. In some modern day yoga manuals, we see a very narrow, almost casual looking triangle. Both feet point forward, the stance is very modest, and the body tilts sideways like a simple diagonal line. In some yoga circles, particularly in Sadhguru's Isha Yoga, a version of this pose still exists. Isha Yoga's philosophy is that the pose isn't about anatomical alignment or anything to do with hip opening or any type of athletic effort. Instead, the pose is all about geometry. The idea is to create a type of geometry with your own body that mirrors the cosmic geometry. The idea is to feel the body as part of the universe's architecture. So in this interpretation, Trikonasana is less about muscles and joints and more about symbolism and energy. So alignment and anatomy simply isn't a factor. As yoga globalized in the 20th century, teachers like BKS Iyengar began emphasizing longer stances and more specific alignment. In this kind of modern version of the pose, one foot turns out fully, the other pointed in slightly, and the stance becomes much wider. Now we're talking about angles of the hip, stacking the shoulders, and drawing lines throughout the body. The hand to the block is a modern teaching adaptation which I thoroughly recommend. It allows you to maintain alignment without collapsing through the spine. This version of Trikonasana takes the pose away from cosmic metaphor into a more anatomical and kind of pragmatic lens. It's about doing the pose specifically and safely with your body. Legend has it, and no one really knows the truth, that this version of triangle morphed from the earlier version of triangle. When the earlier version with both feet pointing forward was presented to Western practitioners, they couldn't bend to the side without irritating their hip joint. So it was recommended, legend has it, by BKS Iyengar, to turn that hip out to create more space for that sideways movement. In the Ashtanga Vinyasa system, Trikonasana is part of the primary series. Here, the stance is deep, the back leg is powerful, and the front hand binds to the toes. The emphasis is less on props or modifications and really more on athleticism, strength, flexibility, and definitely endurance. The Ashtanga style Trikonasana reflects Ashtanga yoga's roots in the Mysore Palace era of the 1930s, when, if you recall, yoga was taught alongside gymnastics and Indian wrestling. In some modern day yoga classes, Trikonasana has become a bit of a playground, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense at all. Teachers add binds, twists, core variations, arms floating forward, all done to test balance and endurance. These adaptations actually reflect yoga's evolution into the fitness culture. We're not just holding shapes, we're layering intensity, building resilience, and making old postures new again. Benefits of the more modern variation of triangle includes improved core strength, better balance, more muscular endurance, but they also show how yoga keeps evolving in dialogue with contemporary movement trends. That for me is the defining characteristic of modern day physical yoga poses, its ability to evolve and adapt. This is my favorite version of Trikonasana, the long stance Iyengar style triangle. BKS Iyengar codified this in Light of Yoga, printed in 1966, and it really for me is the gold standard. This particular version for me represents the biggest shift from the earliest triangle. It's moved away from symbolic geometry to athletic precision. Trikonasana's evolution is not random. It actually completely mirrors yoga's own evolution, from an esoteric practice to this global physical discipline that we all do today. Triangle is not just one pose. There are so many ways you can triangle. Trikonasana really is a story of cosmic symbolism, of physical culture, and of modern adaptation. So which one of the triangles that I've mentioned is the real triangle? The answer is none of them and all of them. Triangle is a living pose, and your version will evolve with your body, your teacher, and your time. So whichever version you practice, the narrow, the cosmic, the athletic, or the aligned, remember this. In yoga, as in life, there is never just one angle. That might be one of my best puns yet. If you want to learn from me and my team, check out akramyoga.co.uk. We have yoga teacher training and online CPDs. Namaskar.